Do you ever wonder how scientists can prove that something like, say, smoking causes cancer, or that high cholesterol is a one-way ticket to heart disease? I mean, they can't exactly run an experiment on people, right? Well, a lot of the time, they use one of the most powerful tools in all of public health, something called a cohort study. And to really get what that means, we're going to solve a real-life medical mystery.
So let's head back in time. The year is 1992, and our story starts in the small community of Juneau, Alaska. The scene is set for a classic summer get-together.
Picture this. You've got friends, families, neighbors, all gathered for a big picnic. They even ordered 2 whole roast pigs all the way from Seattle for the main event. It's the kind of perfect community day you see in movies. But, as you might have guessed, something was about to go very, very wrong.
So, let's dig into what actually happened. The problem wasn't the picnic itself, but how the star of the show, the pork, was prepared.
Okay, here's the play-by-play. First, 2 frozen pigs were left to thaw out at room temperature. That's a big no-no right there. Pig number 1 gets cooked and served around 9 p.m., no problem. But pig number 2, it was cooked late by a substitute who didn't even use a meat thermometer. Then, to top it all off, both pigs were just left out, unrefrigerated, overnight for almost 20 hours before being served at the picnic. I mean, you're practically rolling out the red carpet for bacteria.
And yep, you guessed it. A few days later, the local health department starts getting calls. People are sick. The diagnosis? Salmonella. A full-blown outbreak was officially underway.
This is when the medical detectives, a team from the CDC, get called in. Their job? To get to the bottom of this, to figure out exactly what made everyone sick. And the method they used is the very definition of a cohort study.
So how'd they do it? It's actually pretty brilliant in its simplicity. First, they found their cohort. That's just a fancy word for a group of people who all shared an experience. In this case, it was 60 people from 17 families who took home leftovers from that second pig. Then they asked 2 super simple questions. 1, were you exposed? Meaning, did you eat the pork from pig number 2? And 2, what was your outcome? In other words, did you get sick? That's it.
And when they laid out the data, wow, it just jumps off the page. Take a look. Of the 43 people who ate the pork from pig number 2, 21 of them, almost half, got sick. Now look at the people who didn't eat that pork. Out of 17 people, only 1 got sick. The pattern is just crystal clear.
So they crunched the numbers and figured out what's called a risk ratio. And the result was just staggering. People who ate the pork from pig number 2 were 8.3 times more likely to get sick than people who didn't. Case closed, right? Well, not quite.
You see, the investigation uncovered another fascinating little wrinkle, a second mystery hiding inside the first one.
Think back to that chart. There were 22 people who ate the contaminated pork but were totally fine. Why? What was different about them? The investigators had a hunch. It was all about how they reheated the leftovers. And that led to another mini-investigation.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Among the people who ate leftovers, they looked at 2 groups. Group 1, 10 people who zapped their pork in the microwave. Every single one of them got sick. Group 2, 20 people who used a regular oven or a skillet on the stove. And not a single one of them got sick. 0. The thinking is that the microwave's uneven heating just wasn't enough to kill off all the salmonella. Incredible, right?
Okay, so this whole picnic story, it's a fantastic real-world example of a much bigger idea, an incredibly powerful scientific tool. So let's zoom out for a second. So here's the official definition. A cohort study is observational. That's key. Scientists don't do anything to the people, they just watch. They define a group, the cohort, figure out who was exposed to something and who wasn't, and then they just follow them to see what happens. This diagram really lays it all out. It's so elegant. You start with a population, you identify your exposed and unexposed groups, and then you just let time do its thing. At the end, you compare the results. Simple, but so powerful. Now, these studies come in 2 main flavors. You've got prospective studies, which start right now and follow people forward into the future. And you have retrospective studies, which use old records to look back in time. Our picnic mystery? That was a classic retrospective study. Everything had already happened, they just had to piece it together. And I am not exaggerating when I say these studies have literally changed our world. The legendary Framingham heart study? That's how we know about the dangers of high cholesterol and blood pressure. The British doctor's study gave us the undeniable proof that smoking causes lung cancer. Even our understanding of the long-term effects of radiation comes from studying the survivors of the atomic bombs in Japan. These are huge, life-altering discoveries. But, like any scientific tool,
Cohort studies aren't a silver bullet. They have some incredible strengths, but they also come with some pretty big challenges.
One of their biggest strengths is that they can show the exposure happened before the disease. This is huge, because to say one thing causes another, it has to come first. They also let us measure risk directly. Remember that 8.3 times number? And they're fantastic for looking at rare exposures, or for seeing if one exposure leads to a bunch of different diseases.
Now for the flip side. These studies can be insanely expensive and take forever. We're talking decades. You also need tons of people. Some studies follow over 100,000. And a huge problem is when you lose track of people over the years. If too many drop out, it can really mess up your results.
So with all that in mind, what's the big takeaway? Why is this one type of study so important to pretty much all of modern medicine?
This quote just nails it. We can't do an experiment where we tell one group of people to start smoking, right? That would be completely unethical. Cohort studies let us learn from the natural experiments that are happening all around us anyway as people live their lives.
At the end of the day, that's their superpower. They take things we just observe and suspect, and they turn them into hard, scientific evidence. And that evidence is what allows us to make smarter decisions about our health and build a healthier world. So we went from a contaminated picnic in Alaska all the way to some of the biggest life-saving discoveries in history, all thanks to this one powerful idea. It really makes you think, doesn't it? What's the thing in our lives right now, the food we eat, the tech we use, that's going to be the subject of the next great cohort study that changes everything?